episode 144, The Next Right Thing. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast helping DIY marketers find your micro-influencer magic so you attract raving fans and repeat buyers. I'm your host, Nesbitt-Rodarte, and this week we've got part one of my interview with copywriter Erin Ollila. The conversation was so good and so thoughtful and so deep that I could not even consider chopping down the 90 minutes into an hour. And I knew that 90 minutes was a little long for a podcast episode. So we've got two episodes. This week we're chatting about a whole bunch of stuff, including neurodiversity, which was unexpected but wonderful. We talk about how to plan for the future. We talk about being authentic in your marketing. And we talk about why it is okay to repel some clients. Hey, Gratitude Geeks, the biggest card and gift sending holiday of the year is drawing ever more near. Release the stress of your holiday card sending and get it done now. You can make your holiday card and choose a specific date to send it. That means your stress over your holiday cards can be gone in just a few minutes for the rest of the season. Learn how at relationshipmarketingcoach.com. Conversion copywriter, copy coach, wingwoman, word slinger. No matter what you call her, Erin Ollila believes in the power of words and how a message can inform and even transform its intended audience. When she's not working with big brands and small businesses to marry strategy, storytelling, and SEO, you can find her hosting the Talk Copy to Me podcast or exploring southeastern Massachusetts with her family and friends.
If you think about any type of neurodivergence, we're all in education, like growing up in the school system, at least in America, I can say we're all taught to one specific way to learn. So what happens is people who are neurodivergent have to learn like coping mechanisms or masks for certain things to like survive in this environment that's not really set up for the type of processing that we do. So whenever I talk to someone, especially if they are older and newly diagnosed, not like children as an example, because they don't know what they don't know yet. But people who are just recently diagnosed, I find that they really are shocked to see how much it influenced their life and like how many things that they realized they adjusted to be in a certain way when things could have been a lot easier if they just approached it differently. So I've been diagnosed for a long time, but I'm still learning so many things about ADHD, even though I've probably been diagnosed for over 10 years now.
Well, I think that there are more people. It's like dyslexia. 20 or 25% of the population has dyslexia. I don't know what the percentage is for ADHD, but I seem to know a lot of adults who are now saying, I have this thing. So calling it neurodivergent actually feels like it's disingenuous since it's such a large portion of the population.
Well, but it is neurodivergent because your brain transmit information in a different way than someone who would be considered like normal or what was the opposite of neurodivergent here?
Neural normative?
Yeah, I guess so. Neural normative, right? So it's like, like the front parts of your brain don't fire in certain ways. You don't transport chemicals in certain ways. So at least for me particularly, that's why I think it fits pretty well in the neurodivergency field. Right, let's start this podcast off by using the correct words, Erin.
I believe that since so many people seem to have these divergencies, that it's actually evolution.
Oh yeah. No, I'm with you. I actually don't believe there's any such thing as normal. Like, I think that's just such a crock that we've all been kind of taught that like you have to act this way, behave this way. But if you look at each individual person, there's such a wide variety of like processing, thinking, feeling, acting, behaving that I think we're all neurodivergent. It's just, there's a spectrum of who we are as a human, and there's no real one quote unquote normal.
Well, you're right. There's absolutely no normal. Who wants to be normal? That's boring.
Yeah, not me.
So boring. All right, so let's get into this. How'd you get started? What's your story? How'd you get to where you are? Tell us your story.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I Way back in the day, in the early days of high school, I randomly called a drug treatment center that happened to be right next door to my high school. And I said, "Hey, are you hiring for anything?" Literally went and got a job. And then I worked in the field of human resources, in specifically in the addictions and mental health field, for about 12 years. Loved the people I work with, loved the type of work I did. It just wasn't mentally what I felt. I didn't feel stimulated or excited by things. And I loved learning about people. So I always say that's one of the first like huge aspects of what I take into copywriting now is just, in addition to the administrative work, I also did a lot of case management in the mental health field. So I loved helping people. I loved learning about what makes people tick. And then I decided I was going to go back and get my master's in what I did my undergrad, what I always thought I would do, and that was in writing. So I went back to school. I got my MFA in creative writing. I started my own literary journal, all while working in administrative jobs, before taking a big leap and a big pay cut to work at a marketing agency. And in that marketing agency, we did SEO for medium sized businesses. And I just fell in love because it gave me the tools that I wanted to write and to inform and to educate, and all while doing it in a way that, like, I don't know, the beauty of SEO, just you can get information to people that they need. Whereas prior to that, like, I was writing, and especially in the literary world, you write and you just think like your words vanish in a vapor into the air, right? Someone maybe will read them. Who knows, right? It all feels very impossible. And I don't mean that in a negative way. My journal is over 10, well, it's 10 years old this year. So, I mean, I'm still like highly ingrained in the literary world, but I think it's a lot that creative writers think that, like, there's a lot of hope and a lot of expectation that nothing will come from that hope. So that job with SEO was really kind of my big kicking point, and that eventually I had children. Life circumstances really kind of led me to working at home with my kids, and I decided to take the skills that I learned from the wonderful people that trained me and I worked with and start my own business. And here I am, over 6 years later, doing the same thing: writing, creating content, and enjoying it. But even the transition from there to here has been wild. I originally started working with really huge brands, Fortune 100 companies, creating content for them. And that was probably the one of the best blessings that I had right out of, like, into freelancing, which is really how I'd call that phase of my career. I thought I was running my own business, and I, in many ways, was. But what I also learned over time is, while the skills were great, while the money was great, while I was always at the forefront, what I thought of like marketing changes, I was very much on the brand's schedule and mercy, right? So many times I would find that projects would end, and it would be great, working with them, but they ended for natural reasons. Maybe their campaign wasn't working, maybe it just finished, and then all of a sudden that income disappeared from my pockets, or their timeline just didn't align with me having an infant at home and having to get something done in 2 days when I had no childcare. So I shifted and started really taking what I learned from the big brands and working with teeny tiny business owners like myself who, had all of the skills to do their job and all of the want to do marketing, but not really any actionable experience to jump in. And that was great. So I've kind of worked everywhere in between, like the one person business, the like $1 billion businesses, and all of the middle guys that kind of fall in that spectrum.
Who's more fun to work with, the billion-dollar companies or the mom and pops or
Ooh,
the
that is
solopreneurs?
that's a tricky question. I'm gonna say my answer is the small people. I think just because I do really well with one-on-one communication, and like my business is really relationship based because that's just who I am as a human. So it's nice to get to know someone even if it's a smaller project. But it's also really fun to test in the marketing world on budgets that like are not the small budgets, right? And I don't mean that I played around with big brands' money, but I mean that they were definitely experimental and they were willing to try things and to test things and to see what happened. And that was really exciting to be able to have that like belief in me that I could try these things out and get them results. But I still think it's that one-on-one relationship that I like with the smaller people.
We're on the same train because I completely scaled my business back so that I'm only working with solopreneurs.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun for me.
Yeah, it
I,
is. And it's nice to kind of celebrate other people's wins. I had this conversation with a copywriter recently where she was telling me about, I don't really care to like make hundreds of $1,000s a year. Like, I don't care like if any of these things that we're taught that we have to do because I feel really good about working with the people I work with. And I realized it was one of the first times that I really heard that from another copywriter, but I've heard it from other people in the marketing world. But for me specifically, like, yes, I mean, I like money. I like to make money, but I also really just want to be involved in the work that I do, if that makes any sense. So when my clients, like one of my clients had a big launch last year, and it was just so thrilling to be like, oh my gosh, look what happened. This is great. Let's try this. Let's change that. Like to be in the moment and experience it and share them on and their goals, or even smaller cases where it's just as simple as, writing website copy for someone who has a really good idea or like they really care about changing the world one person at a time. So I feel good knowing I'm helping them do that thing. And I don't think I really recognized that until this year. I think I knew it instinctually, but it felt differently to kind of vocalize that, like why I'm doing what I'm doing.
well, it's also nice to get the validation from someone else who's doing the same thing that you're doing that, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because everyone always says, now mind you, I told you I'm over 6 years in business. I'm over 7 years freelancing. So I've been doing this for a long time. And I am the first person to say that I have no clue what I'm doing half of the time, which sounds so silly because, I'll hear other people who are like 3 years in business and they appear so confident and collected, like they really just know how to run a business. But I have liberal arts degrees, like I have a bunch of majors in college. They were always like arts related. So no one's ever taught me how to be a business owner. And I think I've done a good job. But what I hear from other people is like, we have to show up in business and have these like, what's your 5 year goal? What's your 300-year goal? How much money are you going to make at this time or that time? And what are you going to do to like pivot? And I'm like, I really just like showing up and doing the work that I do. And I felt bad for a long time that like I didn't have this massive like future goal. And in some ways, I think that was also related to my time in life. Like I mentioned, I was having little babies and raising them at home without childcare. And it's very overwhelming to think past the moment when you have screaming infants all night long and you still have deadlines and client work. So I think coming out of that now with my children getting older, I am able to like plan, have a vision a little, but I still think the vision really comes down to I just want to show up and do what I feel really pulled to do and excited to do for other people.
And I think you're going to be successful because
Thank you.
well, here's the thing. This is what I know after owning a business for 20
20 something.
20 something years. Yeah. Things change. I
Yep.
mean, so I launched an online custom furniture business in 1999.
Wow.
Right? 99,
Yeah,
1990. Do that
that took
math.
some belief in yourself
Okay.
too, right?
Well,
Everything was different
I
online.
believed in my husband's skill
Yeah.
and in my
That's good.
ability to get the work done. But here's what I know after all 20 years. Okay. You shouldn't plan for a specific thing. You should plan for a certain feeling, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how much money it's going to be, but I know that in the future, I'm not going to have to work 50 hours a week.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And so I don't make those money goals. I make, okay, this is who I want to interview. I want
Yeah.
to interview these people. These are the kinds of clients that I want to work with. And having that vision, like I have this picture of Neil deGrasse Tyson, right?
Mhm.
I want to interview Neil deGrasse Tyson. Do you know
I
him?
love that. I will help you track him down. On my podcast, that's actually one of the last questions I ask people. Like, I love to connect people. Who do you want to be connected with? And I just feel like that, now that I know this, I have a mission in life to help you get in touch with him.
Well, here's the thing. I interviewed Ivan Meisner very recently, and he told me that I'm going to end up interviewing Neil deGrasse Tyson because I ask everybody. Because I'm so focused on, because that's my goal.
Exactly. And when you don't ask, you can't expect things. I mean, yes, we could all try to harness the power of attraction, but like if you're not asking and you're not putting that intention out there, like it will not come to you. So I think you are also going to succeed in this.
Well, that's the thing about goal setting is that you can put a picture on the wall of something that you want, but if you aren't on purpose asking, right? In fact, you're not doing the activities to get you there. A bicycle doesn't magically appear under the Christmas tree if you don't
Right.
ask for it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally is sidestepping. I hope you are going to give me permission to do that here with this ADHD thing. It just really reminds me of what I talk to my clients about though in marketing is I'll have people come to me and they feel so frustrated when they first like start working with me because a lot of it's shame and beating themselves up of not getting further or not like doing better in their marketing. And what I can recognize that in myself too, because here's what we do. We beat ourselves up for the work that we think we should be doing. They'll say like, oh, I know I need a blog, or I know I need to write these things, or I really have this great idea about a lead magnet, but there's no action being taken. And I'll say to them, I'm like, why did you spend so long beating yourself up? Like action is what gets things done. Action, who cares if it's a stinky blog post, right? Like who cares if you're not the best writer in the world, but like you're showing your potential clients that like you care enough to inform them or that you're trying to run your business in a way that feels good for you. And I'm not saying blog posts are for everyone, because I'll also tell my clients, like, don't do it if it's not right for your business. But just little things like that I hear. And I recognize it in myself as a business owner of like having goals, wanting to doing things, feeling like you need to do this and then not taking action. And it's like, really, the only way I've ever succeeded in business is that first tiny step. This the Frozen 2 song that's like, do you happen to know like Anna sings in Frozen 2 about doing the next right thing or the next best step or something to that effect? We sang this in my house for a long time. And I think of it all the time.
My kid's is way older than yours.
Yeah,
I know the first movie.
I'll tell you, it's a great song, which is so silly, but it's basically she thinks her sister's lost and she thinks she's completely on her own at this point. And like it's like a sad song, but she's telling herself, no matter what, she's just going to do the next right thing and the next right thing. And I actually think about that a lot in my business. Like, well, what's the next right thing? Like, is it as simple as posting something on social or, emailing a former client to ask if they need any more help? Whatever it is, it's action that takes us from where we are to where we want to be.
I think that you've just given me my next mantra, my new mantra. What's the next right thing?
I'll send you the song once the recording ends. I'm gonna send you that clip because it's really good.
Just do the next right thing.
The link to the video for the song will be in the show notes because I think that that is a question that we all need to ask each other. And I have that same conversation with my clients too because I'm a DIY marketing coach. Yeah, I teach them how to do it themselves. I don't do it for them. I teach them how to do it themselves. And I've had people say, I don't want to do Instagram. I don't want to make reels. So don't.
Right. So I say this like, why? Okay, cool. Like, let's move on from that then. Let's not waste any more of your call going over something you don't want to do. And let's talk about what fills you up, what you feel comfortable with. Right.
And I have built 2 businesses without being a social media guru. Yep. It's about building you are doing the right thing with the relationships. It's about building relationships. Yeah. You build a relationship with somebody who knows you, likes you, and trusts you. And they're going to say, oh, you want to learn how to do your own marketing? Let me introduce you to Candace. You want to learn how to do your own copywriting, or you want someone to help you with your copywriting? Let me introduce you to Erin.
The next right thing.
Okay. Let's go back to marketing.
Okay.
So copywriting is really, in my opinion, it's more important than the graphics when it comes to social media marketing. But most people think that they have to have pretty graphics. So go ahead and unpack that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that for you. And I get it. Here's the thing, like, psychologically, what we're drawn to is what we see, period. Right. So like if we see a design that feels pleasant to us, it's the first thing we notice. And if we see something that's very unpleasant to us, it is also the first thing we notice. So I think the reason why consumers, and I say consumers here, meaning like small business owners who need to hire for copywriting or DIY their copywriting, they think I need to have something pretty to lead my brand. But the way that I like to remind people that that's utterly untrue is imagine any website in your brain. Let's just go with Target here, right? We know Target is a red and white brand. They have a big circle with a bullseye looking circle. And now imagine their website with 0 words and 0 letters on it. Tell me what that business is. You don't know. right? I mean, you might think that maybe it is literally like an archery business because you have the circle within the circle. Maybe it is an eye center, like if we're looking at like the circle within the circle being someone's eyeball. Even if you see pictures like products, so you know that they might be selling something, if anything, that actually makes it more confusing, right? Because it's like, what is this company with the colors? You as the consumer have to look at a brand. When I say brand, I mean like the visual brand without words and completely guess. How does that convert anyone? It doesn't. I mean, maybe you have someone who guesses correctly, but then you're not doing any relationship building with them. You're not showcasing that you understand like the needs that they have and that you have a solution for those needs. What really drives a business in any form of marketing, be it social media, be it their website, email, e-commerce, is the words that power the message. Of course, visuals make a big difference. Because if you flip flop what I just said, imagine a website now with only words and no visuals. It could work. I mean, the message is there, like especially if you're writing in a way that you're speaking to your client's needs or your lead's needs here. But it's exhausting to read so much black words on a white background. The reason that copy and design play so well together, especially for things like website, is that you're giving people's brains a chance to process the information that you're sharing with them. So really, design and copy really work well together, but copy always drives design. The message that we have to share with our audience really needs to be the big brand push, right? Like, what is your business about? Why do you care about these things? Why are you the right person to help with them? Once you have that solidified, your brand messaging, then I say go get a brand style. Then determine how you want to visually show up. And the pairing of the two is really what's going to convince those potential leads that they want to work with you.
I want to go back to that Target example because it's a lot of people think that the branding comes first and the message comes later, but the message does come first. But I want you to think about this. If you just saw that red circle with a white circle with a red circle with a white circle all by itself, you know what company that is.
Now, because the message is there and the brand is there.
And when you think of Target, you think, okay, it's a little step up from Walmart and a little step down from a department store. Mm-hmm. And depending on where you live in the country, it's a really expensive place to pick up groceries, but you can if you have to, right? Yes. Depending on where you live, right? Do I want to drive all the way to the grocery store, or since Target's on my way home, can I just pop in and pick up some eggs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much established itself in our minds for what Target is.
Yeah.
I can grab a Starbucks, grab a shopping cart, and spend an hour and a half in Target and get lost forever, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always a Starbucks in the store. I mean, Target has defined who they are, but that wasn't true. I mean, Target, in my lifetime, Target became a company. So I think I might have been in my late teens or early 20s when I first became aware of Target. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who they were at first. I was like, oh, it's just another Kmart. It's just another Walmart. Kmart's been out of business forever now. But mm-hmm. But it's just but now that logo, I see it and it means something. It means Target. I mean, it only means Target. It's like a Nike swoosh. It only means Nike.
Yeah.
But that it didn't start that way. You have to be consistent. So where I'm going with this is do the copy, but make sure that how am I going with this? How I want to make sure I say this the right way. You share your message. Those first, if you're on social media, I guess those posts could just be pictures of you with your message, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't need, my business, and if you would like me to be completely honest, I don't have like a brand style sheet that has like a list. I do try to use certain colors, but like, I don't have a certain list of images that I use or certain styles that I use because my business is my name and people just generally know me as who I am. Of course, I like to be consistent, right? So on my website, you'll find consistent coloring and I tend to like brighter things, but it's not driving my visuals don't drive people to want to buy from me. They are just there to accentuate the message. And I think that when we look at these well-named brands, like you said, Nike, Target, all these other companies, I think a good way to remind people here is a brand is the message and how it gets presented to the people who are potentially consuming from that brand, right? So when it comes to Target and the bullseye, it's not just the visual logo. I mean, yes, it's identifiable, but it's also like everything that you shared about Target, like where it falls on the spectrum of like type of places to shop, what you can experience when you step in the store. That is not one thing. That is not just visuals. That is not just words. That's how the brand has come together. So if we want to like scale back and talk about like the DIYers who we both serve, it's imagine being a company and you decide the brand visual is going to be a tree. Now, what kind of brand is that, right? It could be a landscaper. It could be a tree removal brand. It could be a paper brand. It could be green living type of brand. It could even be a content company if the tree is an evergreen tree, right? So what we do to grow our business is we decide what is our company about. That's an easy, like, what do you do? Decide who do you serve and how do you serve them? So like the landscaping company, and they have this one tree as their logo, for example, maybe they determine that they're going to have like a subheading or a subtitle to their business name. And it's like helping you keep your home, a lovely place outdoors or something, which is a horrible example. But that sub logo, which is the words, helps get that mission across of what they do. The paper products company, maybe they have like literally a mission, vision, and values on their website that talks about how they really care about the planet, and they understand like we get our paper from like responsibly sourced trees, right? So all of these tiny facets of the business is what makes the whole brand recognizable later on. So, if you're just starting off and you're DIYing your business, just take the little tiny step into determining these things. You don't have to show up with the perfectly crafted visual elements for your brand or perfectly crafted brand message, brand guidelines, or anything like that. It's, I had an episode on my podcast about brand guidelines where I talked with a visual artist. So we kind of talked like the difference between copy guidelines and visual guidelines. And what both of us said is like, don't think that you have to have the like 5 perfectly colored colors that like work well together as your brand style, or, a brand guidelines that said we use this word and not that word, and this word and not that word. If you want to get started and be a little more organized or be a little more consistent, open a blank Google document and jot down one thing that's important to you. Maybe it's something like, we don't use emojis in our business. Cool. You got your first brand guideline, right? I know you seem shocked. Maybe it is, we love emojis in our business. Whatever it is, right? Like, write that down in the blank document. You have your very first step to showcasing who you are as a business and a brand, and you just add to that. That's truly how marketing gets done over time. We're not in those Fortune 100 meetings where the marketing team is massive. And if you'd like me to be honest, I've been in those meetings. They're just arguing with each other. That's all that happens within them. But we don't, we're not sitting down and creating this one brand in one meeting. It's the tiny little things that the actions, like if we want to bring it earlier to the conversation, maybe it is that you try something on social, like a business owner wants to try those Instagram reels and point and click and dance. And they say, okay, I'm going to give it 30 days. I'm going to try them. And then they realize halfway through, they're like, this is awful. I have zero interest in this. Well, then they go to your brand document. It has like 5 bullet points at this point, and just write down pointing and dancing in videos is just not, doesn't feel natural. So if I am going to post reels, maybe it will be an audiogram, maybe it will be whatever, or maybe I'm just not going to do this and I'm not going to invest my time in this way. But those little actions, those decisions, those behaviors that we start to form, that's what makes the brand that later on is so recognizable.
Exactly. And you don't have to do reels and TikToks. Actually, I do not recommend doing TikTok, period. Stay away from TikTok. Don't do it. But you don't have to do them. You don't have to get on. Some people are really good at some. I'm pretty good at voiceovers. And I recently discovered that I could just do a video with me talking over an image on a screen.
Yeah, totally.
And I love it. It's so much fun. All right. So I agree with you about the branding and letting that evolve. I would recommend that you pick a font and use the same font on your graphics. And then maybe pick an element. It's like I use a lot of circles because I like coffee, and I use coffee in I talk about coffee a lot, and a coffee cup.
Yeah.
Oh, my coffee's gross. The coffee
Yeah, that's
cup.
okay. Yeah.
The coffee cup is a circle. So I use a lot of circles. But that evolves. It just keeps happening. It evolves over time. And then pretty soon people just start to recognize that look at Candace is using a circle again. Well, Candace is talking about coffee again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Those tiny facets, like you don't have to be the whole part of your brand. Maybe it's something that's a temporary thing people get to know, and then you don't talk about it so much. Or maybe it's something that is so permanent that coffee becomes like maybe you take the coffee colors as part of your brand design, or you start to have you title your offers like something like, a quick Java fix of like whatever, right? So it's like there are many ways to do this. So first, like just stick with the first step and say, hey, what is something that's like known about me, or I wouldn't mind being known about me? For me, it was my love of Trevor Noah. So we'll put this connection opposite. If you happen to know Trevor Noah, please send him my way. Even though I am married, I still love him, and I'm willing to just be his best friend. But,
you know what? He's on my list too.
All right. Well, there you go. We'll share. But as an aside, like I talk about silly things like that. Like I love ice cream. I love pretzel bread. And like, does everyone know that about me? No. But a few of the people that are in my network do, that like maybe peers that could like if they hear one of their clients chatting about something silly and their client says like, oh, I just made some pretzel bread last night. And they might say like, who you should get to know? Go talk to Erin about this. She loves pretzel bread. Or if it's like, oh, you need this done. Well, I know this copywriter and she always does this and she always talks about that. That's how things grow. It's those small things. And like I said, you can choose to incorporate them as time goes on in a big way in your business, or you can scale them back and introduce new things because, we're all multifaceted. Like coffee is not the central to Candace, right? Like it might be a big deal and it might be like such a big deal you're willing to have it in your branding. But if over time you realize you also love tea, you go for it. You get that tea, right?
For the longest time, I moved away from the coffee colors in my branding because I had picked a pre-made template for my website and I just went with the colors. And I am rebranding right now to add the coffee colors back in because coffee is everywhere on my website. The names of my coaching packages all have to do with coffee.
Right. And that's a really great example though of like having that little like quirk that you can like talk about that's relatable that you can bring into your business and really brand it in a strong way. A lot of the times my clients will ask me like, how do I bring in personality into my business? Like, especially the DIYers, like when I do copy coaching sessions, they'll say like, I know I have the writing skills. Like I've written a thesis for goodness sake, but I have no clue how to make my writing sound like this, or like they'll show me competitors as an example. And I'll say like, well, one, we have to look at what type of personality we want to have. Like not everyone has to be like the bubbly, fun sorority girl, right? Like it could be that your personality is like the college professor. Like, so determine how you want to show up. And then once you know that, think about like what facets of you as an individual fit into that persona that you're being within your business, right? So for you, for example, it could be like, I love talking about coffee. Like this is like, I'm hyper caffeinated, right? And you bring it into all of the like about page. Like, so if, for example, you're saying like, when you work with me, you'll get that hyper caffeinated coach who steps in and shows you XYZ. Or like you mentioned, I mean, you're already doing this, but like your strategy calls or whatever it is, ways to work with you are titled things like that. And it just seems really relatable. So that's a great way to bring personality into your brand. If you want to go heavy on something that's familiar or relationship building without being like, the 5 fun facts about Candace, or when I'm not working, I'm doing all of these things. Maybe you're not comfortable sharing these personal things that you want to do because it's just not your brand. You don't have to. Like, figure out how you want to show up and then think about those little personal elements that you can kind of really pull the strings on and get you that quote unquote personality in your copy.
I agree with you completely, 100%. Stay authentic, stay in your lane. I mean, I will oftentimes post pictures of myself how I really look without the wig. Just because I'm authentic AF, right? Hashtag authentic AF. Because there are so many people who spend hours getting the right shot, doing their perfect makeup, yada, 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 yada. And that's not authentic.
Yeah.
That's
It
not
just
authentic.
leads to burnout too, right? Like, even if you think about it just from a completely one-on-one personal basis, not professional, like if you keep trying to, and I say persona because I think it makes sense, right? Like I even have my own business persona, but it's very close to my personal persona, right? So if you look at times in like your own personal life, you've tried to step out of who you are or show up in the way that people have wanted to, it's exhausting, right? It's overwhelming. Eventually, at some point, you're just going to feel like I can't do this anymore. The same goes with business branding. I had a coach once who, and this is why I always laugh because when I say the college professor, I think of her. She was an older woman who had an extremely successful corporate career in which she was doing coaching, but started to be self-employed, decided she really wanted to jump ship and do her own coaching business. And she was really concerned about how the heck to show up online because, she was great at coaching. She had done this successfully, really well her whole life, but she didn't want to point and dance. And that it felt so uncomfortable to her that she was just avoiding starting the business, avoiding getting clients because she didn't know how to show up. And I was like, I mean, I enjoy talking to you. Like, I mean, you're so smart. Like, you seem so confident. Like, you really just give off this energy that, like, a coach should, right? Like, that they're comfortable around you, that, like they're going to trust you. I'm like, that's all you have to do on your website. Like, you don't need to list that cilantro is your favorite food and you would eat it by like the bunch, which is another one of my clients did say that, and that worked so well for her, right? Because that was her business. And again, talking about this coach that I use my college professor persona, is like she didn't want to talk about like the people in her family, like her children were older, she didn't feel comfortable like bringing them up. And I was like, great, cool. Like, I very rarely bring up my children in my business. I talk about them very frequently. It's not an unknown fact that I have kids, but I'm going to give them their privacy, right? So like, we all think that I think we have to show up in certain ways, and it's really just identifying like what feels good to me, what feels safe to me, what feels like the people I'd want to work with would enjoy as well. Because if you are authentic within your marketing, within your business, within how you show up, you're going to work with people who are similar to you. If I always tell people the best thing you can do is repel clients, right? Like, being who you are, being true to yourself, your business, your brand is going to attract the right people, and it's going to repel the wrong ones. And thank goodness, because you don't want to work with them. They don't want to work with you. It's going to just be a friction type relationship. And you want to serve the people who enjoy you as you really are. And I think that committing to that within your marketing and your messaging and your copy is really going to do that best.
That's a really good question to ask yourself when you're putting together your ideal client profile is if you start to attract people that aren't in alignment with who you are, then why are you attracting them?
Yeah.
What is
absolutely.
it that you're doing that is attracting them that you need to change just a little? So my business coach used to be in film. She was in film forever. And she makes these beautiful videos. So when I was first looking for a coach, I was very much attracted to her videos because she never wore makeup. Her hair was always flying all over the place. She always does it outside in natural light. So, the wind is blowing, and she was just really authentic. And I was like, that's the coach for me. I don't want a lipstick, perfect eyelash coach. I wanted somebody who had more experience than me, because when I was in my 40s, when I was looking for a coach, I wanted somebody who had more experience with me. I didn't want a young person whose lipstick was so bright it took over the whole screen, right? I cannot stand lipstick coaches. I'm just telling you that right now. I was attracted to her because of everything that she projected in herself. And then when I got to know her, I was like, oh, she's even more, I like her even more now, because she was really putting herself out there authentically. So, in terms of the professor, your coach, it's the same thing. You wouldn't have been attracted to her if she had if she was not being authentic. And then what happens when they don't show up authentic? Quick story, and then I'll let you share.
Please do.
Okay. So I had a girlfriend 10 or 15 years ago. And when she met her husband, he had beautiful green eyes. And she was really attracted to his beautiful green eyes. And then they got married. And a couple of mornings after they got married, he had brown eyes. He had been wearing
contacts.
He had been wearing green contacts the whole time.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, that's like lying to the woman you marry. Right?
That is wild.
Right? So ask yourself, if I show up the way I really look, am I still going to be attractive to am I still going to attract the people that are, I'm not using the right word, but.
No, I know what you mean. And just to piggyback on that point, like, what attracted you to your coach was the fact that they were showing up as authentically as possible. And that felt good to you. Now, on the flip side, there are people who specifically seek out people who look visually put together because that gives them the confidence that they need, that they're experienced. Now, is that right? No. Neither person's opinions really are right here. It's what feels good for you. So you felt comfortable knowing that this coach was like, they are who they are, like they're not trying to physically change themselves to show up with their expertise. And another person feels comfortable with the lipstick coach because they're like, oh my gosh, they're so put together. They know what they need to know. That makes me feel safe. And both are fine, right? So that's why repelling works so well, because if you are confident in who you are, what you do, and who you serve, your coach, for example, they're not crying because someone didn't hire them because they aren't, wearing their lipstick and their hair is a mess in the wind. And the other coach, who is the lipstick coach, they're not crying because you don't want to work with them. The people that are right for them are going to show up if they can truly be consistent to who they are in business and who they are within their own marketing and branding.
Exactly. And that comes back to, who's my ideal client?
Yeah.
And what am I doing to attract them?
Yes,
I love
exactly.
Okay, we need to talk about testimonials. But that conversation is going to have to wait until next week. We have 45 more minutes of amazing conversation around testimonials, how to ask for them and what to do with them. So you'll want to check out episode 145.
Just do the next right thing.
Thanks for joining us this week for Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast helping DIY marketers find your micro-influencer magic so you attract raving fans and repeat buyers. Your time is valuable, and I am ever so grateful that you chose to spend your time with us today. Be sure to check the show notes at gratitudegeek.com, episode 144, for links to all the groovy resources mentioned today, and of course to connect with Erin Ollila. If you enjoyed this episode, why not leave a 5-star review? Look for the Leave a Review link in the show notes, gratitudegeek.com, episode 144. Our theme music is track 14 by Rev Brock and So Lily. I've been your host, Nesbitt-rodarte. Join me on my mission to spread gratitude, sow seeds of appreciation, and harvest a bounty of generosity and kindness. Stay groovy, my friends.
Just do the next right thing.